Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, let's learn. That's what we usually do. My name's Connor. If you're new, the original link to the video top of the description, preemptive like. TLDR news. How do laws get passed in the UK? So, in the US, I believe, you propose a law in the House of Representatives. The law gets voted on in the House. Well, you have to propose a law, and then it gets voted on in the House. If it passes in the House, it gets sent to the Senate. Then, if it fails in the Senate, it doesn't work. It goes back to the House. Or if it succeeds in a vote in passing the Senate, it then goes to the president, who then can either sign it or veto it. So I'm assuming it's going to be somewhat similar for the UK, but let's find out.
The UK parliamentary system can seem a little confusing from the outside. It's hard to know what's going on inside Parliament and what it means for your life. That's why we run a series called This Week in Parliament to show you exactly what bills are being discussed on the floor. We have loads of people ask us to go into more detail about how bills actually go through the House and explain how laws are passed in the UK. Before we go into the specifics of the bill, it's important to first understand just how the British Parliament works. Parliament is split into two houses.
Commons and Lords.
The House of Commons and the House of Lords. The House of Commons seats 650 members of Parliament, or MPs, people elected to represent areas of the UK known as constituencies.
So if you were to compare these two to the US, I would say, the House of Commons is the House of Representatives, and the House of Lords is like our Senate.
The House of Commons and the House of Lords. The House of Commons seats 650 members of Parliament, or MPs, people elected to represent areas of the UK known as constituencies. The House of Lords sits around 800 unelected members known as Lords. They're appointed by the Queen, usually at the advice of the Prime Minister, or the House of Lords Appointment Committee, established in 2000. The role of the Lords today is to hold the government to account and make sure that the laws being passed are effective and fit for purpose. They cannot veto legislation though, they can only delay it for 1 year. Historically, this wasn't always the case. In the past, if the House of Lords didn't like a piece of legislation that the House of Commons suggested, they could stop it completely.
Yeah, what's sort of crazy about that is, prior to, when it could veto laws and whatever, it seems like, it makes it seem like the House of Commons is just sort of a PR thing for the more aristocratic House of Lords to be like, hey, see, it's all democratic, you can elect people here, but the unelected Lords can still just, decide not to pass it or delay it or whatnot. So, yeah, that's kind of an issue.
This changed due to legislation that the House of Commons suggested they could stop it completely. This changed due to the passing of the Parliament Acts in 1911 and 1949. These acts
it's like saying, like, yes, everyone can vote on people, but we're going to have a higher chamber filled with more, non-elected people that can stop that legislation. Now, obviously, it's changed. I'm talking more about the past. They can't veto stuff now.
Moves the veto power from the House. They could stop it completely. This changed due to the passing of the Parliament Acts in 1911 and 1949. These acts removed the veto power from the House of Lords and instead allowed them to delay legislation for 2 years and then for 1 year, respectively. These steps majorly reduced the power of the House of Lords. In addition to this, the Salisbury Convention, which started in the 1940s, was and still is an agreement between the House of Lords and the House of Commons, which says that if a piece of legislation is in the government's manifesto, the House of Lords will not block it at the second or third reading. This again reduces the power of the House of Lords. So in the modern day, the House of Lords has a lot less power than it once did, and serves only really as a check to make sure that the pieces of legislation are fit for purpose.
So I don't love it when who you shouldn't care. I'm from America, okay? I'm not from the UK. It's not really my business, but I like to learn about it. Why not just make it so that the Lords are elected? And if there's if the reason is, well, we don't want to do it that way, that's fine. I'm not I'm not trying to like grill you or whatever. I'm just asking why not? Why not elect the lords like you do the House of Commons?
This isn't to say that their job isn't useful, just that they can't cause as big a problem for the government as they once could. Now we've explained a brief history of the relationship between the House of Commons and the House of Lords, it's time for the exciting bit: how the laws are passed. For the purposes of this video, we're going to look at bills starting in the House of Commons, introduced by the government, known as public bills. There are also what are known as private members' bills, which are introduced by MPs or lords who are not government ministers, as well as private and hybrid bills. There's so much to discuss that we'll have to do that in another video. If you'd like us to cover these types of bills in a video, like this video and comment below to let us know. The first step towards legislation is often a green paper, which is usually vague and contains multiple policy options. These are consultation documents, introduced mainly to stimulate parliamentary discussion on the topic of legislation.
Makes sense.
Once it's been briefly discussed in Parliament, the government will usually begin consulting citizens and the public bodies which are most likely to be affected by the legislation. Once this process is finished, the government will then issue what's known as a white paper. This will be informed by the public consultation and contain more concrete policy proposals. They often include a draft bill to provide a basis for changes to be made before the bill is formally presented to Parliament. Finally, a bill is formally proposed and read. This is the first reading. There's no debate.
That makes complete sense. That it sounds like anyone, designing a government where you got to pass bills would make it that way. You want to get the idea out there. People can talk about it and then form a sort of rough draft. Yeah, that makes sense.
At this stage, the bill will usually just be read to the House of Commons. The next stage is the second reading. This is when the House of Commons has its first debate on the proposed bill. After the debate, MPs have a vote on whether the bill should continue. If it succeeds, then the bill goes on to the third stage, known as the committee stage. This is when one of the committees in Parliament takes a closer look at the proposed bill. The chairman of the committee can then decide which amendments to the bill are discussed and then voted on by the committee. After this is a chance for the whole House of Commons to suggest amendments. This is known as the report stage. Once the whole of the House takes a closer look at the proposed bill. The chairman of the committee can then decide which amendments to the bill are discussed and then voted on by the committee. After this is a chance for the whole House of Commons to suggest amendments. This is known as the report stage. Once the whole of the House has had the opportunity to suggest amendments, the bill goes on to its third reading. Usually there's little debate. At the end of this stage, the bill is voted on. If it succeeds, then it goes on to the House of Lords. At this point, the process is repeated in generally the same format in the House of Lords. Like in the House of Commons, the bill goes through a first reading, second reading, committee stage, report stage, and third reading in the House of Lords. If the House of Lords decides on any changes to the bill, then it's then sent back to the House of Commons to be debated and agreed to there.
I understand there's got to be a balance between it going through enough hands to where it can be seen as a logical and sensible bill to be passed. But at the same time, there are so many steps to where it can be, kind of swatted down. This doesn't go for the same goes for US, I'm sure. But it seems like you're going through what would be like a sequence for nuclear code launches, something that is going to have such a drastic effect on the world as launching a nuclear weapon that needs to have redundancy, like all of these checks to make sure if you're sending if you're sending it, that there's no mistake, right? But this is when it's passing a law. I get that it's going to have consequences, but to go through this many different stages of like checking, rechecking, checking, it seems almost overkill. And what do I know? Guys, please tell me if I'm wrong. I'm just kind of saying what's on the top of my head here. Yeah. I wonder if the US has the similar amount of steps. But I understand the reason for it. It just seems like there has to be a balance between getting bills quickly through to get into law and then affect society the way you want to affect it, and balancing that with, well, making sure that it's not an irrational bill, or it might not work perfectly, and so you have to do double check, triple check, quadruple check. But how many checks is gets to the point where it's too much, you know?
If during this stage the House of Commons makes any amendments, it's then sent back to the House of Lords to agree to. This continues until no more changes are made.
Yeah, like that similar thing, I think, happens with the House and Senate over here.
This back and forth procedure is known as ping pong.
Sort of like if the House agrees on something and sends it to the Senate, and then the Senate doesn't like it, it doesn't just stop there. It goes back to the House to make some changes and then send it back. Does the Senate like it? Oh, I don't like it. Send it back to the House. You know, I don't know if the same term of ping-ponging is used, but
once the ping-ponging
like
is
same
stopped
deal.
and both houses have agreed on the wording of the bill, it's sent to the Queen for royal assent. This is when the
this is like sent to the president for over
Queen
here.
signs off the bill and allows it to become law. It's a convention that the Queen always grants royal assent. The Parliament Acts mentioned earlier.
So it's just kind of like formality, or just it's like the Queen isn't going to say like, no, like I don't like this, don't pass it, but it's just like her being, or him now, rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth, King Charles, to just be like, yep, I'm the king, you know, sign it up. So it's not like they're going to say, no, I don't like this, send it back.
EU grants royal assent. The Parliament Acts, mentioned earlier, can be used if during parliamentary ping-pong, neither house can agree on the wording of the bill. The House of Commons, in these exceptional circumstances, pulls rank. So it's clear that both the House of Commons and House of Lords play a vital role in the lengthy process.
So the House of Commons has the final say? Is that what to pull rank means?
Bill. The House of Commons, in these exceptional circumstances, pulls rank. So it's clear that
Wow, it does mean that. Wow, okay. Oh, crap. Oh, no. Where is it? Jesus Christ. Here we go. The last tab I checked.
both the House of
I went through all of these, skipped this one, went through... All right.
Commons and House of Lords play a vital role, can agree on.
That's interesting. I don't think that's how it works over here. I think the bill just dies if it doesn't get through the Senate enough times. I think it just dies.
The wording of the can be used if during parliamentary ping-pong, neither house can agree on the wording of the bill. The House of Commons, in these exceptional circumstances, pulls rank.
Interesting.
So it's clear that both the House of Commons and House of Lords play a vital role in the lengthy process of creating laws in the UK. If you want to stay up to date with where bills are in this process and what MPs are debating in the House, you would enjoy our series This Week in Parliament. We're bringing the series back next weekend and we'll be running it bigger and better than ever all the way through until Christmas.
It's a great video. I would appreciate any comments down below, guys. Obviously, a lot of stuff I don't know here, so would always appreciate your comments. Hope you're all doing well. See you next video. Bye, guys.